regulators and Chrysler, it is over. So after this ongoing saga, what Chrysler finally agreed to do is inspect these vehicles.
Every mechanic has a horror story, and these cars are the prime suspects. Clues are everywhere. Oil leaks, fried electronics, transmissions that vanish overnight. Each breakdown tells a story, and when you connect the dots, the same names keep showing up. Which models appear in every failed inspection? Why are the same complaints filed year after year? And is your car next on the crime sheet? Because by the time this case closes, you'll know exactly who's guilty. Chrysler Sebring? Back in the late 2000s, Chrysler tried to refresh its midsize sedan lineup with the Sebring, promising style and comfort at a bargain price. On paper, it looked like an appealing choice for drivers who wanted domestic engineering without paying premium prices. The Sebring featured a sleek roofline and a cabin advertised as spacious, with options that seemed ahead of its time. Yet under the surface, this car was hiding problems that mechanics still shake their heads at today. The Sebring's engines were notorious for being underpowered, and the automatic transmissions were plagued with premature failure. Owners often reported rough shifts, unexpected stalling, and costly breakdowns. Even when the car ran smoothly, the cabin materials felt cheap, with peeling plastics and rattling trim. Water leaks, electrical glitches, and suspension clunks only added to the long list of complaints. What looked like affordable transportation often became a constant money pit. Mechanics frequently warn buyers that the savings on the purchase price are quickly erased by repeat shop visits. Despite being marketed as stylish and dependable, the Sebring became one of Chrysler's weakest offerings, and it severely hurt the brand's reputation during that decade. Many drivers who bought one new traded it in early, and those who kept them often faced repair bills larger than the car's resale value. So if you spot a used Chrysler Sebring from this generation sitting cheap on a corner lot, remember this warning. Sometimes a low sticker price is a trap. Speaking of hidden traps, the next vehicle on our list takes family hauling and turns it into frustration. Kia Sedona. When families in the mid-2000s went searching for a minivan that promised space, comfort, and affordability, many were drawn toward the Kia Sedona. At first glance, it appeared to be a smart alternative to the expensive vans offered by domestic rivals and Japanese competitors. It came with 3 rows of seating, generous cargo capacity, and a price tag that seemed to undercut the market. For parents juggling school runs, weekend sports, and road trips, the Sedona looked like a solution. Unfortunately, beneath the glossy brochures, it was hiding a reputation that mechanics would later call troublesome. The most alarming issue was its electrical system. Owners frequently reported power-sliding doors that jammed, malfunctioning dashboard lights, and battery drains that left them stranded in parking lots. Transmission problems were another expensive headache, often appearing far earlier than expected and requiring complete replacement. The suspension system was not spared either, with many drivers complaining of premature wear on struts and noisy clunks from the undercarriage. While the minivan did deliver decent comfort when it worked, the cost of keeping it running soon outweighed the bargain sticker price. Mechanics who regularly serviced these vans often warned that a used Sedona could quickly transform from family friend to financial burden. Even diligent maintenance could not always prevent the parade of repairs. So, before you consider rescuing one of these vans from a used lot, remember, not every bargain is a blessing. And if you thought a family van could not get worse, the next entry proves otherwise. If you've already been shocked by these ticking time bombs, imagine what's still ahead. Before we dive deeper, hit that like button to show your support and drop a comment below telling us the worst car you've ever owned. Your story might save someone else's wallet. Dodge Journey. At the dawn of 2009, Dodge rolled out the Journey as a fresh crossover meant to capture families who wanted the practicality of a minivan wrapped in the styling of a sport utility vehicle. On launch day, it seemed like a clever middle ground, offering 3 rows of seating, optional all-wheel drive, and a low starting price that tempted buyers across the country. Yet as the years stretched forward, what looked like a family bargain slowly revealed itself to be one of the most infamous missteps in Dodge's modern history. Under the hood, the base 4-cylinder engine left drivers frustrated with sluggish acceleration, while the optional 6-cylinder could not mask the transmission's chronic problems. Mechanics consistently pointed out premature failures, overheating issues, and costly repairs that surfaced well before the odometer hit 100,000 miles. Interior quality was another sticking point, with cheap plastics, peeling peeling trim, and electronics that failed without warning. Air conditioning systems were notorious for burning out, leaving families sweating through summer commutes. Brake components wore down at alarming speed, forcing owners to replace pads and rotors far too frequently. By the time production limped to a close in 2019, the Dodge Journey had earned a reputation as a rolling liability rather than a dependable family hauler. Resale values plummeted, and used car lots were littered with them at rock-bottom prices. If you thought one disappointing crossover was enough, the very next vehicle shows that Ford had its own disaster waiting in the wings: Ford Fiesta. Some cars arrive with promises of excitement, style, and economy, but end up leaving behind a trail of angry owners and exhausted mechanics. The Ford Fiesta, sold in North America between 2011 and 2016, fits that unfortunate description perfectly. Marketed as a lively compact car with European flair, it quickly became a favorite among budget buyers and younger drivers who wanted something affordable yet fun. The sporty exterior, vibrant color choices, and fuel economy ratings made the Fiesta appear like a smart city car. Unfortunately, what hid beneath the cheerful bodywork was a mechanical nightmare that has become infamous in automotive circles. The largest problem was the power-shift dual-clutch automatic transmission. This complicated unit was supposed to deliver the efficiency of a manual with the ease of an automatic, but instead it produced endless jerking, slipping, and complete failures. Lawsuits, extended warranties, and countless angry reviews piled up as owners faced repeated replacements. Beyond the transmission, the Fiesta also developed issues with electrical systems, weak interior materials, and premature suspension wear. Owners often described the experience as driving a car that constantly begged for attention in the repair shop. Even those who maintained their vehicles carefully could not escape the inevitable transmission collapse. For mechanics, the Fiesta became shorthand for frustration. The low entry price lured in countless buyers, but the long-term repair bills erased any savings. And if you think Ford stopped there, the next entry proves the brand repeated the same mistake on a larger scale. Ford Focus. In the early part of the 2010s, Ford believed it had a winning formula with the Focus, offering a stylish compact that promised efficiency, affordability, and fun behind the wheel. Buyers lined up to get their hands on this small sedan and hatchback, trusting the Ford name and the reputation built by earlier generations. On the surface, the Focus delivered attractive styling, plenty of technology for its class, and competitive fuel economy that caught the attention of commuters nationwide. Yet beneath the appealing price tag and promises of reliability was a problem so severe that mechanics and owners alike still warn against touching these model years. The disaster centered on the infamous power-shift dual-clutch transmission. Marketed as an innovative system that would combine the best of manual and automatic driving, it turned out to be unreliable, jerky, and prone to complete failure. Drivers experienced shuddering starts, sudden power loss, and expensive repairs that sometimes exceeded the value of the vehicle itself. Numerous lawsuits and warranty extensions followed, but the damage to the Focus nameplate was done. Beyond transmission failures, the car also suffered from electrical glitches, poor interior durability, and premature suspension wear. Mechanics often described the Focus of this era as one of the most frustrating compacts to maintain. By the time the 2016 model year wrapped up, consumer confidence had collapsed, and resale values sank sharply. If you thought Ford's small cars had issues, just wait until we turn toward a compact from Chevrolet that brought its own set of troubles. Chevrolet Cruze. Every now and then, a car arrives with big promises of being the affordable small sedan that can compete with the best from Japan and Europe. The Chevrolet Cruze, introduced in North America in 2011, was meant to replace the aging Chevrolet Cobalt and finally give General Motors a global compact contender. The styling was sharp for its class, the cabin felt roomy compared to rivals, and fuel economy ratings suggested this car could save owners money at the pump. For a brief moment, it looked like Chevrolet had finally cracked the code on building a reliable compact car. Unfortunately, the Cruze quickly proved to be more of a headache than a breakthrough. One of the most notorious problems came from the cooling system. Failing water pumps, leaking thermostats, and blown head gaskets were common, often leading to overheating and costly engine damage. Turbos on the smaller displacement engines added another layer of risk, with many units failing prematurely. Electrical glitches, power steering failures, and cheap interior components further eroded owner confidence, Mechanics often pointed out that what looked like a budget-friendly commuter could easily turn into a financial trap once the repair bills began to stack up. By the middle of the decade, the Cruze had already developed a reputation for unreliability, and resale values plummeted accordingly. What was supposed to be Chevrolet's answer to the reliable imports instead became another cautionary tale. And if you think Chevrolet stumbled here, the following entry shows that Jeep's problems were even more dramatic. Jeep Liberty. During the early 2002s, Jeep unveiled the Liberty as the successor to the beloved Cherokee, promising rugged capability packaged in a smaller and more modern body. At first glance, it seemed like the perfect solution for buyers who wanted authentic Jeep character without paying for a Wrangler. Sales were strong in the beginning, and the Liberty quickly became a common sight in suburban driveways across America. The styling was distinctive, with its round headlights and upright stance, and the promise of four-wheel drive capability gave buyers confidence. Yet as the years rolled on, mechanics began sounding alarms about serious weaknesses that would turn the Liberty into one of Jeep's most notorious misfires. The engines, while adequate in power, were often paired with transmissions that developed premature failures. Overheating issues, fluid leaks, and complete breakdowns became common stories in repair shops. Rust plagued the frames, particularly in northern states where road salt ate away at structural components faster than expected. Electrical gremlins, from faulty window regulators to failing sensors, created endless frustrations. The suspension was another weak point, with clunks, rattles, and worn bushings appearing far too soon. What was meant to be a rugged companion ended up feeling fragile and unreliable. Owners who attempted to hold on found resale values sinking rapidly, and many eventually abandoned the Liberty altogether. For mechanics, it became shorthand for disappointment. And if the Liberty left you shaking your head, the next Jeep offering on our list proves that lightning can strike twice, and not in a good way. Jeep Compass and Jeep Patriot. In the mid-2007s, Jeep launched two compact sport utility vehicles, the Compass and the Patriot, aimed at capturing budget buyers who wanted the Jeep badge without paying Wrangler prices. On the surface, this strategy looked like a smart move. Both models featured boxy, rugged styling, affordable entry prices, and marketing campaigns that leaned heavily on Jeep's legacy of off-road adventure. Many first-time buyers were drawn in, hoping to own a vehicle that promised heritage and utility. However, as soon as these crossovers began piling up miles, the truth emerged, and mechanics were quick to warn customers away. The most infamous issue was the continuously variable transmission. These gearboxes were plagued with overheating, whining noises, and eventual failure, often at mileage points far earlier than owners expected. Repairs or replacements cost thousands, sometimes exceeding the value of the vehicle itself. Interior quality was another sore spot, with cheap plastics that cracked and rattled after only a few years. Electrical problems, including faulty sensors, flickering lights, and failing power accessories, made ownership even more frustrating. Drivers also complained about weak engines that struggled to provide enough power, especially when loaded with passengers or cargo. Suspension wear, noisy steering, and leaking seals further eroded reliability. By the time production ended in 2016, both the Compass and the Patriot had earned reputations as some of the weakest products in Jeep's lineup. And if these compact Jeeps disappointed, the next vehicle proves that Nissan's troubles during the same era were even more alarming. Nissan Altima. Throughout the 2010s, the Nissan Altima was one of the most common sedans on American roads, often praised for its sleek styling, comfortable ride, and reputation as a fuel-efficient commuter. It seemed like the perfect choice for families, students, and professionals who wanted reliable transportation without spending luxury prices. Dealerships sold them in huge numbers, and used car lots across the nation were filled with Altimas, promising affordable mobility. However, as the miles piled on, mechanics began warning drivers that beneath the polished exterior lurked a mechanical weakness so severe it would eventually tarnish the entire nameplate. The culprit was the continuously variable transmission. This technology was marketed as modern and efficient, designed to maximize fuel economy and deliver smooth acceleration. In reality, it delivered grinding noises, jerky behavior, and premature failures that left owners stranded and angry. Replacements often cost several thousands of dollars, a bill far greater than many owners expected. Beyond the transmission, the Altima also developed problems with steering components, premature brake wear, and electrical issues that triggered random warning lights. Cabin materials felt flimsy compared to rivals, with upholstery and trim showing wear far too quickly. Mechanics frequently noted that while the Altima was easy to sell, it was nearly impossible to keep dependable past the first major breakdown. By the end of 2017, its reputation was badly scarred, and resale values reflected the lack of trust. And if this sedan left buyers disappointed, the next Nissan crossover reveals the very same weakness, but on an even larger scale. Nissan Rogue. In the middle of the 2014s, the Nissan Rogue surged in popularity, quickly becoming one of the top-selling compact sport utility vehicles in the United States. With stylish looks, roomy seating for families, and impressive advertised fuel economy, the Rogue seemed to deliver everything the average driver wanted in a practical crossover. Buyers loved the low monthly payments. Dealerships moved them off lots by the thousands, and Nissan enjoyed a huge sales boom. Yet, as so often happens, the honeymoon phase did not last. Mechanics began sounding alarms that what looked like an affordable and family-friendly crossover was in fact hiding a serious flaw. The weak link was the continuously variable transmission, the same technology that had already haunted the Nissan Altima. Owners described shuddering, whining noises, overheating, and complete transmission failure at mileage points well below 100,000. Replacement costs soared into several thousands of dollars, erasing any budget savings. Beyond the transmission, problems included failing air conditioning compressors, premature suspension wear, and faulty steering components that made the Rogue feel unstable. Electrical glitches, from malfunctioning sensors to dead batteries, added even more frustration. Inside the cabin, cheap plastics and rattling panels revealed cost-cutting measures that disappointed buyers who expected higher quality. By the time the 2017 model year wrapped up, the Nissan Rogue had earned a reputation for unreliability despite its strong sales. And while this compact crossover stumbled, the very next Dodge entry shows that bold styling alone cannot hide fatal weaknesses. Dodge Nitro. When Dodge rolled out the Nitro in the late 2007s, it caught plenty of attention with its bold, squared-off styling and aggressive stance. At a glance, it looked like a tough, mid-size sport utility vehicle built to handle both the city streets and rougher back roads. Advertisements pushed the Nitro as a statement of rugged individuality, targeting buyers who wanted something more muscular than the typical family crossover. The design worked in terms of attracting eyeballs, but once the vehicles hit real driveways, the flaws began piling up, and mechanics soon recognized the Nitro as one of Dodge's more problematic creations. Beneath its bold styling, the Dodge Nitro hid weak engines and failing transmissions. Owners faced rough shifts, leaks, and costly breakdowns. Suspension wear, electrical faults, cheap interiors, and poor fuel economy left drivers burdened with frustration and high repair bills. By the time production ended in 2011, resale values had collapsed, and the Nitro's reputation was beyond saving. If Dodge thought bold styling could cover for reliability, the next entry proves their minivan suffered an even longer list of headaches. Dodge Grand Caravan. Among American families, few names became as recognizable as the Dodge Grand Caravan. For decades, it served as the face of the minivan segment, hauling kids to school, shuttling groceries, and taking families on road trips across the country. By the late 2008s through the final production year of 2019, it was still one of the most affordable choices on dealer lots, often advertised with enticing discounts and bundled incentives. At first glance, buyers thought they were getting a practical bargain, but behind the sliding doors and family-friendly image lurked a mountain of reliability concerns that mechanics knew all too well. The Dodge Grand Caravan's biggest flaw was its automatic transmission, often failing before 100,000 miles. Add malfunctioning power sliding doors, weak electrical systems, cheap interiors, and fragile air conditioning, and families quickly discovered constant repairs outweighed any initial savings. While it could haul people and gear with ease, the constant repair bills erased the value of its low sticker price. Resale values tumbled, and used car buyers grew increasingly wary. And if the Dodge Grand Caravan carried disappointment for families, the next Chrysler sedan shows how even a sleek design could not save a brand from repeated mistakes. Chrysler 200. When Chrysler introduced the 200 in the early part of the 2011s, it was meant to symbolize a new era for the company after years of financial struggles. Advertisements painted it as sleek, modern, and ready to compete with stalwarts like the Toyota Camry, Honda Accord, and Ford Fusion. Buyers were tempted by attractive lease deals, sharp styling, and the promise of a revitalized brand. At first glance, The sedan looked like progress. However, beneath the fresh sheet metal lay a host of issues that would quickly unravel Chrysler's attempt at redemption, earning the 200 a reputation as one of the most disappointing sedans of its decade. The biggest culprit was its transmission. The automatic gearbox often jerked, stumbled, and sometimes failed entirely, creating endless frustration for owners and costly repairs. The base 4-cylinder engine was underpowered, leaving the car sluggish in city driving and weak on the highway. Even the optional 6-cylinder, while stronger, could not rescue the driving experience. Electrical glitches were rampant, from malfunctioning radios to dashboard warning lights that refused to shut off. Interiors, though initially stylish, revealed low-quality materials that wore down rapidly. Mechanics often compared the 200 to a polished shell hiding fragile components inside. By the end of 2014, sales had slumped, reviews were harsh, and consumer confidence vanished. Chrysler discontinued the model soon after, leaving behind a cautionary tale. And if you think this sedan was problematic, the next Nissan sport utility vehicle shows how an entire lineup can stumble. Nissan Pathfinder. In the early part of the 2013s, Nissan unveiled the redesigned Pathfinder, shifting it from its rugged truck-based roots into a softer, family-oriented crossover. At launch, the move seemed brilliant. It offered 3 rows of seating, a comfortable ride, and attractive styling that caught the attention of suburban families looking for space without stepping into a minivan. Sales were strong, and the Pathfinder quickly became a common sight in driveways and school parking lots across America. Yet behind that polished first impression, the Pathfinder of this generation became one of the most notorious vehicles for mechanical headaches, earning a reputation that mechanics still warn buyers about today. At the core of the Pathfinder's downfall was its continuously variable transmission, notorious for whining noises, overheating, shuddering, and sudden failure. Costly replacements erased savings, while weak air conditioning, worn suspension, steering flaws, and electrical gremlins made repairs frustratingly repetitive. By the close of the 2016 production year, the Pathfinder's reputation was severely damaged, and resale values fell dramatically. If the Pathfinder showed how Nissan lost its way with crossovers, the #1 entry demonstrates how Dodge buried a classic nameplate under unreliability. You've made it this far, and the #1 disaster car is right around the corner. If you never want to miss another mechanic's warning, now's the time to subscribe. Join our community, stay ahead of the breakdowns, and protect yourself before making your next purchase. Dodge Dart. When Dodge revived the Dart name in the early 2013s, enthusiasts hoped for a modern compact that could carry the legacy of the classic muscle era into the new century. The marketing campaign promised bold styling, advanced technology, and a fun-to-drive character at a price within reach of everyday buyers. On the showroom floor, the Dart looked sharp with its aggressive stance, available turbocharged engine, and tech-heavy interior. For a moment, it seemed like Dodge finally had an answer to rivals such as the Honda Civic, Toyota Corolla, and Ford Focus. But once the excitement faded and real-world ownership set in, the Dart revealed itself as one of Dodge's greatest miscalculations. The issues began with underpowered base engines that left the car sluggish and unrefined. The optional turbo motor, while lively, was paired with transmissions that suffered from jerky shifts, hesitation, and frequent breakdowns. Reliability quickly became a nightmare, with electrical gremlins, stalling problems, and sensors failing long before they should. Interior quality disappointed as well, with cheap materials, rattling panels, and infotainment glitches. Owners found themselves paying more in repairs than the car was worth, and mechanics often advised avoiding the Dart entirely. By the end of the 2016 production run, Dodge pulled the plug after dismal sales, leaving the Dart as a cautionary tale rather than a comeback story. And with that, our countdown reaches its end, showing exactly how flashy promises can hide ticking time bombs underneath the hood. You've just seen the 15 cars mechanics warn will bleed your wallet dry, but knowing the danger is only the beginning. Protect yourself by subscribing right now, because our next video reveals the most reliable trucks and SUVs you should actually buy. Drop a comment sharing the worst car mistake you've ever made, and let's warn others together. Hit that like button if you value the truth no dealer wants you to hear, because your money deserves protection.